Good evening, everyone. On this rainy Monday night, anybody want to report on the score of the college football championship game? You don't know? Anybody know? John, are you looking at your phone right now? A good call, 10-7. All right. Welcome to the Clovis City Council meeting. We're glad to have you here in the chamber, or if you are joining us online, thank you for participating. We encourage public participation. This is your city and your community, and we are your servants, so we welcome your participation via the web, here in the chamber, written comments, or participating by phone. So with that, I will call the meeting to order, and I will ask Councilmember Pierce to lead us in the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Baskell? Here. Councilmember Bessinger?
Here.
Councilmember Moniz-Thorpe?
Here.
Councilmember Pierce? Here. And Mayor Ashbeck?
I am here. Our first order of business tonight is the presentation of a proclamation declaring January as National Slavery and Human Trafficking Prevention Month. And I am going to take the privilege of reading that. And so if our friends would like to come up and gather and receive this after I read it to you, that would be great. And as we were just chatting out there, this is one of those proclamations that you'd prefer you'd never have to read, but grateful for EOC and all the work that's happening around this issue. So this is a proclamation declaring January 2023 as National Slavery and Human Trafficking Prevention Month. Whereas the Fresno Economic Opportunities Commission's Sanctuary and Support Services Central Valley Against Human Trafficking Project assisted and identified over 1,550 victims of human trafficking from our local communities. And whereas the Central Valley Against Human Trafficking Project provides resources to empower self-sufficiency, restore dignity, and support recovery from trauma for survivors. And whereas the International Labor Organization recognized that there are an estimated 50 million people in modern-day slavery globally, where 1 in 3 victims are children. And whereas the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children estimates 1 out of 6 endangered runaways were likely child sex trafficking victims. And whereas the U.S. Department of Labor identified 158 goods from 77 countries made by forced and child labor. And whereas the City of Clovis recognizes the need for greater awareness and accountability in regards to modern-day slavery. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Clovis City Council does hereby proclaim January 2023 to be National Slavery and Human Trafficking Prevention Month, and it is signed today by me. So, to our friends from Central Valley Justice Coalition and Fresno EOC, and Break the Chains, welcome, and I'd love to have you comment if you'd like.
Okay, just wanted to make sure I had the mic set. So again, my name is Amber, and I'm the program manager for Fresno EOC Central Valley Against Human Trafficking. I want to be able to offer some time to my community partners as well to speak on their agencies, so I'll just be really brief. So every year we do recognize January as National Human Trafficking Prevention Month and Awareness Month. This month, we dedicate to raising awareness of human trafficking to our community and to honor those identified individuals and survivors within our communities. I'm grateful to be a part of a community whose anti-trafficking organizations are always seeking collaboration. We do what we can to best serve that individual. And one of the things I wanted to also highlight is that we do have some events that are happening this month, so I wanted to make sure we made note of that. So we have our annual Pledge to Stop Human Trafficking event, so that is a collaborative event amongst all of our organizations here today. It will be this year on January 17th. You're able to register for this event and volunteer at p2st.org, and we are actually hosting a location here in Clovis this year on the corner of Shaw and Clovis Avenue. So feel free to get more information on p2st.org. In addition to Pledge to Stop Human Trafficking, we are also asking supporters to wear blue on January 11th, which is recognizing Human Trafficking Awareness Day. Please go ahead and post that on social media, and you can hashtag wear blue. We're very thankful for your guys' continued support every year. This is, a huge issue within our communities. As you can see, there's multiple agencies because it is truly impacting our communities. So again, we are grateful to the City of Clovis for supporting us. I'm going to offer some additional time for that.
Thanks, Amber. Others?
I'm Deborah Rush. I am one of the founders and CEO of Breaking the Chains. More to this point, I'm also a survivor. In 1999, I was violently taken by a gang member out of Fresno, California, and thanks to our government officials at the Fresno Police Department, I'm here in front of you today, helping to stand with so many of these other amazing individuals who have taken the pledge. So on behalf of all those that we collaboratively serve, we just want to thank you for everything that you guys are doing to acknowledge and make sure that this doesn't happen to another child. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that story. Others? Anyone else?
I'm Krista Weens, Executive Director of the Central Valley Justice Coalition, and we believe that a community of faith and partnership can work together to create change. So our mission is to partner with the church and the community to prevent human trafficking. We are focused on education, outreach, and partnership. And you can learn more on our website, justiceco.org, where you can also educate yourself and take classes through our platform and also through Fresno Pacific University, who we also partner with. So we encourage you all to educate yourselves, your communities, and that together we can not only change the culture, but we can also make a real difference in the lives of individuals before you ever hear the story.
Thank you so much. Others? Well, we appreciate all of your work, and mostly I appreciate how much you do collaborate. There's no competition in this universe, so you all can do better by working together. So thank you for being here. As I said, I wish we didn't have to have your organizations, but because we do, we're glad that you are here. So thank you so very much for being here. We have a proclamation for you, and we'd love to present it to you. Anyone else want to say anything? Vaughn?
Well, I did. I used to work for the EOC, so I understand that program a little bit more. But Deborah, when you invited me to come see what you do, and to see it firsthand, I think it allows us to know where to direct those, if we see them in Clovis, where to go and what to do. And so thank you for inviting us. I encourage my colleagues to also please, invite the rest of them to go see it, because I think seeing it firsthand and hearing the stories and seeing the lives that you touched and the need that you still have to be able to save, not just the young girls, but now, probably young boys too, that are just out there that need this help. So thank you for all that you do.
Thanks, Vaughn. Anyone else? Fine. Go ahead, Drew.
When I was the chief of police at the airport, we had an incident where a man from Virginia was grooming I think a 12-year-old girl, and he flew in, texted her. She went out her window, got in the plane with him. He put a wig on her and told her to act like she was mentally disabled so that nobody would talk to her. No doubt that this young girl would have been either sex trafficked or potentially abused by this man and probably killed. A bunch of law enforcement agencies were involved in it. And fortunately, we got them as they landed in Denver. But it really does happen. We have kids, especially now, who, because they weren't in school for quite a while, have sat at home. Sometimes their parents had to work. They became disaffected and not. When I was a kid, if I couldn't have gone to school, being in a dysfunctional environment, you basically listen to anybody who's going to give you positive feedback. And so we have kids, boys and girls, that are at home on the internet, and someone pretends to be a 16-year-old from another city and tells them the things that they wish their parents were telling them, and they set up a meeting, and then they are never seen or heard from again. So this happens. I think parents need to be vigilant on it, and start asking questions with their kids. And we did an internet safety program at the police department, and some of the parents were shocked by the ease that you had to deal with these things. And you even have the North American Man-Boy Love Association has its own website. It's disgusting. And unfortunately, I don't see it getting any better with the world like it is. And so your organizations are very important. Thank you.
Diane?
Yeah, I just wanted to, again, thank you all for what you do, and I think it's so important, the recognition. Deborah, I've had the opportunity to hear your story, and the fact that you have been willing to take your experience and turn that into a testimony and show that God can work all things for good, I think is just so amazing and such a wonderful thing. And so thank you so much for really being a voice for what's required after our law enforcement agencies do the incredible work of the rescue. There's still so much trauma left to deal with. And so the fact that there are so many organizations and agencies that are doing that work, and Krista, we go back a long, long way, but the fact that there's a recognition of the partnership that can be had between the faith community, the other parts of our community, and our government agencies, I think is absolutely critical to truly finding success in all the different issues and challenges that we face. And so again, just thank you so much for recognizing the need in so many different aspects of a very complex and difficult issue to talk about. And I'm really glad that January is an opportunity to bring awareness to those issues. Thank you.
Thanks. If you can get our staff the details on the Clovis event, January 17, Clovis and Shaw, like what time, and if you could just get that to our staff, then we can all share and support you in that if we're able to do that. All right, so let us present this to you if you'd like to. Next on our agenda are public comments. This is an opportunity for members of the public to address the City Council on any matter within the Council's jurisdiction that is not on our agenda. In order to be heard, we ask that you limit your comments to 5 minutes or less. And so I'll welcome Vester to you to the microphone, and thank you for being here. We're going to get that microphone turned on. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm speaking on behalf of course, not just myself, who is a recovering traumatic brain injury recipient, as well as on behalf of the elderly people who are actually in our city and other cities that are asking for extra help to work, as well as extra help to, of course, get, of course, reignited into the system when they, of course, have passed that age. But besides that, my main concern is this, is that we need better help from our city council members, from our city, to actually address when somebody is actually disabled and worked for 15, 20 years, why do they actually have to pay an enormous amount of money to get their Social Security disability and wait actually 4 to 5 years to receive that, as well as getting denied twice when they have a track record of 15 to 20 years of working hardship labor, as well as on top of that, housing for the disabled, housing for the elderly, on top of that, especially when we need better advocates for our people hard workers that are in the city who have worked the majority of their lives. An accident might happen, and they don't have a direct advocate to help them with housing, to help them with food, to help them with their families, especially to help them going back to work through the Department of Rehabilitation. Sometimes they don't focus on talking to our doctors and getting us to the right positions to make sure that things are ideal for their families to get back in the rotation of things, of being a contributing member of society like they were. And my main whole ordeal is being here today stating that, yes, we do need that help with housing. Yes, we do need that help with extra work. But the work has to be ideal for their condition that they're in. A lot of the people that are assisting our people nowadays, when I'm saying our people, I'm talking about our elderly as well as our ill, as well as our people that have gone through traumatic brain injury accidents like myself. They just kind of push us off. And when they push us off, next thing you know, that person might be homeless. And when they're homeless, that's why we have homeless rates growing, because we don't have a direct advocate for that person assisting them internally for their internal health being. And that's exactly why I'm here today, to say that that needs to increase with our council members through our government. Thank you for allowing me to talk, and I would truly like to say, as an activist for SOLA, Security Officers United LA, I was one of the top executives for SOLA, which is Security Officers United LA, the first security officers union that actually opened up in Los Angeles County after 9/11. It'd be nice to have something like that out here in Fresno County, to have a security officers union from Hanford to Visalia to Selma to Madera to, of course, Fresno and all the other Central Cali areas, because this is something that we need in our area. Better security means better protection, as well as more jobs. And if we increase housing, that'd be better housing for, of course, people that are needing that. And, of course, it could be a low-income housing or affordable housing, but all in all, as we work together and communicate together right away, we have God on our side. We know He's there, and He wants us to build this communication and build that bridge so we could actually get across what we need to do in life to make housing, living, and work better for our community and our citizens in America, especially our law-abiding citizens and our citizens that have worked hard labor in this America that we call our beautiful paradise. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for your comments. I think because I was chatting with you earlier, did you give us your name? Would you state your name for the record, please?
My name is Vester Lee Robinson, Jr.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you, and thanks for having me.
You bet. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Anyone else in the chamber here with a public comment, something that's not on our agenda? Anybody online?
No.
All right. Thank you. And that concludes public comments. Next is ordinance and resolutions. With respect to the approval, the reading of the title shall be deemed a motion to waive a reading of the complete resolution or ordinance, and unless there is a request by a council member that the resolution or ordinance be read in full, further reading shall be deemed waived by unanimous consent of the council. Next is consent calendar. Items, these are routine in nature. They're placed on the consent calendar, and they are considered and voted upon in one vote as one item unless a council member requests individual consideration. A council member's vote in favor of the consent calendar is considered and recorded as a separate affirmative vote in favor of each action listed. Motions in favor of adoption are deemed to include a motion to waive the reading of any ordinance or resolution on the consent calendar, and for adoption of ordinances, only those that have received a unanimous vote upon introduction are considered consent items. There are 4 items today on our consent calendar. I understand Drew has a conflict on item number 5.
I do. I will be recusing myself from item number 5, but I will be staying on the dais.
Thank you. Anyone on the council wishing to pull any of the remaining consent calendar items? No? Anyone in the audience or online wishing to hear an item specifically from the consent calendar?
No one online.
All right. Bring it back to the council. Entertain a motion for the consent calendar with the exception of item number 5.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar of everything except for item number 5.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
There's a motion, a second, to approve items number 2, 3, and 4 from the consent calendar. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And then I will entertain a motion for item number 5.
We're going to hear it at all, or just go ahead and make a motion?
I'll take the motion.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve, consent item number 5.
I'll second.
Motion and second. Is there any discussion in the chamber or online? All right, there's a motion to approve consent calendar item number 5. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? 1. Motion carries 4-0 and 1. All right, on our agenda tonight is one public hearing. This is an item that's considered for open discussion during a regular special meeting. And this is approval of a resolution, CUP 2022-005, an appeal of that CUP. This is a consideration of a resolution denying a request by George Beal to overturn the Planning Commission's approval of CUP 2022-005, which allows a 24-hour convenience store and sale of liquor and alcoholic beverages for off-site consumption on property located on the northeast corner of North Temperance Avenue and Owens Mountain Parkway. Dave Verk, LLC, is the owner applicant. Bottom Line Group, Seth Ramirez is the owner's representative, and George Beal, Beal Developments, LLC, is the applicant of appeal. This was continued from December 19th, and the recommendation is continued once again until January 17th. Staff want to comment on that request?
No, not unless you have specific questions. We just, with the holidays and everything, didn't have an opportunity to get all the parties together. Met with them last week, and both parties agree that moving it to next Tuesday, the 17th, was the best thing.
All right. Any questions for staff on the recommendation? Anyone in the chamber to speak to this item tonight? I know the parties have been notified and we're supportive of this. Anyone online?
No.
All right, we'll bring it back to the council. It is a date certain, so there will not be a renoticing, but I would entertain a motion to continue this to the item of January 17th.
I'll make a motion to continue it.
Second, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Motion is second to continue item number 6 to January 17th. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Under administrative items, there's a couple items tonight. The first is consider approval of the 2023 street closure request and approve that resolution declaring certain events as Old Town special events and setting precise boundaries for those Old Town special events. And staff on this is Sean Miller.
Thank you, Mayor Ashbeck and members of council. This is it's that time of year where we consider approval of the request for street closure for the events that happen through the year. These are routine in nature, and there will be other events that are requested throughout the year that are kind of new events or not routine. But we thought we would take this opportunity, because we have a very light agenda tonight, and go through and talk a little bit about the process of approving these street closures and also the importance to the city of Clovis. So we have a slideshow there.
A 3.5-hour PowerPoint presentation on street closures?
Yes.
Nice.
I'm going to name off every single one of the events. And
then show a photo collage of each
114 of them. Okay. See if we can go back. This is out of order slightly, so I am finding. Not here.
Your presentation.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you for being here.
There it is. I just went past it the first time. Okay. So in 2000, this is interesting. I was thinking that since the founding of Clovis, these outdoor events have been really, really important to the community and also to the culture of Clovis. And about 100 years after the first event happened, there was an ordinance that was adopted by council that kind of streamlined the process, kind of defined the process for street closure approval for these events. So, Clovis Municipal Code Section 5.20, effective February 17th, 2000. So, when a promoter requests permission for street closure, they must do that within 90 days before the proposed event. That gives staff time to process the request, to notify neighbors, to work with the promoter and make sure that this thing is going to be successful. Staff reviews those requests, and during that process, they introduce, could be a number of things. It could be perhaps if alcohol is involved, we'll need to go through the ABC permit. If traffic plans need to be, polished, we'll do that. We have a committee of staff members. It is the special event committee, and it's staff members from every single department. So we review every single one of these requests for street closure and come up with a whole list of things that are recommended. Staff notifies potentially affected residents as well. So that would be your property owners, your residents, your business owners that may be affected by the street closure, and solicit comments from those folks. And then council considers the approval of the requests, and then if they are approved, the staff continues to work with the promoter all the way down to the day of the event, and then also following up with comments following the event. Okay, so in Clovis, we kind of think about tourism a little bit differently than a lot of cities. It's really important as an economic development tool, and so we look at tourism as kind of one of four ways. Tourism retention is really just providing things for the local folks here to do, so it keeps them in town. It keeps them spending money on this side of Willow. And then immediate tourism, it provides opportunities for neighboring residents, people that live like 50 miles away, Hanford, come here and spend some disposable cash at Big Hat Days or Clovis Fest or things, the rodeo, things like that. And then an intermediate destination serves as people on their way to, say, Yosemite or Kings Canyon. They may want to come and spend the night here in one of our hotels, and then they're going to end up eating in some of our restaurants, filling up with gas, stuff like that. And then in-destination tourism, people are coming here for something very specific. And a good example of that would be the high school sports, the CIF track and field, for example. Or maybe the rodeo. They're coming here specifically for that, and they're going to stay at our hotels. They're going to eat in our restaurants, and they're going to fill their cars up with gas. They're going to shop. They're going to buy the ACE bandages that they forgot to bring. They're going to buy batteries for their, for whatever. And so each one of those, starting from the retention all the way to the in-destination, becomes more and more valuable to the community. Okay, so I talked a little bit, I mentioned rodeo twice, and I used rodeo as an example for calculating the value of that event. So this is projected estimate for 2023. It may change just a little bit, but it's going to be pretty darn close. So each out-of-town resident who stays in Clovis is going to spend an average about $148 per day. That doesn't mean per family, or it doesn't mean per couple. This includes everyone, including children. It's $148 on average per person per day during a visit that includes an overnight stay, which also includes an event like the rodeo. Now, each one of those visitors, or each visitor that doesn't stay in Clovis, perhaps they're staying in another community, or maybe they're driving from one of the cities that are 50 miles away, they're going to spend quite a bit less. It's about $67 per day for an event that includes a ticket. Now, each local person, so those are us, we go out to the rodeo and we're going to spend an average of $32 per day for that same event. And in this specific one, the parade I mentioned specifically, all of those people that are just coming to watch the parade, they're going to spend $32 during their stay. Maybe they go to breakfast, maybe they catch lunch after the parade's over, buy a souvenir, whatever it is, but it's on average $32 per day. Any questions on this so far? Okay, so here's how these numbers are calculated. So right now we have 1,122 rooms in our Clovis hotels. For the rodeo, the average occupancy is 1.5 people per room. So you have 1,122 times 1.5, and that's 1,683 times 5 nights. They added that extra night. So we're looking at 8,415 people staying during that time period at $148 per person. We're looking at $1,245,420. That's direct spending, okay? And then on the next couple of lines, you can see we calculated out in the same method for the people that don't live here in Clovis, but they're visiting, and then also the locals. And we come up with that giant number of $4.5 million there. But then it gets even more fun, because each one of those dollars that's spent here is going to circulate within the city and also, well, kind of the region, the metro area 3 times before it leaves. So what's happening is these visitors that come in are going to spend, let's say they go in and they spend $1 at a restaurant. The owner of that restaurant's going to take that and they're going to pay the employees, so it gets spent a second time. And that employee is going to go out and they're going to buy gas in their car, so it gets spent a third time. And then eventually that money is going to be spent out of the area, so it just leaves the area, but it does circulate, and so it's valuable. It's 3 times more valuable than I think we give it credit for. But in the region itself, it's going to be spent 5 times before it leaves. So somewhere it's going to leave the Central Valley, but at 5 times, we're looking at a value of $22 million on that rodeo. So it's extremely, well, almost $23 million. Super, super valuable to us. Any questions on this? And some of you may remember that back in 2009, we recognized at the staff level, and I think also at the council level, we recognized that a lot of events were more valuable than they're bringing in more money, and we found a value in providing city services to them at no cost. And so we identified 7 of these events, which include the antique and collectible fairs. There's a number of those that happen every year. Also Big Hat Days, Clovis Rodeo, the Farmers Market Series, Freedom Fest, Clovis Fest, and also the Children's Electric Christmas Parade. So we do not charge for the city services that we provide to them. There are some services that we do charge for, such as if they are renting a toter or renting trash cans, to put their garbage in, but we don't charge them for police services, raising and lowering the bollards, for hanging the banner across Clovis Avenue. And so we have taken to calling these things the Blessed 7 events. Any questions on this one here? We're going to be done a lot quicker than I think we'd planned. Okay, so in 2023, here are the events that that we're looking forward to. So I'm not going to read them all off, although I could. But there's 50 of those Saturday morning farmers markets that happen through the year. Take 2 weeks off, of course, one for Big Hat Days and one for Clovis Fest. Tacos and taps. This is not a part of the request this evening. That will come a little bit later, but actually that doesn't require any street closure at all. I'm sorry. Clovis Street Fair does. That will come later. That takes place up in the Dry Creek Industrial Park. And Tacos and Taps, of course, takes place at each one of our breweries with food trucks, and encourage people to walk along the trail or bike along the trail. And we also have trolleys that transport them from brewery to brewery. I just noticed that those another one there, the Old Town Beer Crawl. It happens in Old Town. That's just a single event. Vintage Market. They got Days Clovis Fest, Rodeo Parade, all of the farmers markets. There's a lot of farmers markets on the Friday night farmers markets, which are theme nights. You have Military Appreciation Night, you have Pistachio Night, Peach Party, and those things. At the end of the season, the farmers market is a trunk or treat event. Old Town Flea, we don't really touch that much. That happens over at the rodeo grounds. I can go through and read every single one of these, but you're familiar with these. Do you have any questions on any of these events?
Shawna, this original 7 is in our ordinance, and I think it's understood with regards to the city costs. Are they also waived of the city costs?
No.
Okay.
No, all of these are, well, okay, so.
Some are in here, huh?
Those 7 are in here, but the ones that are not included in that blessed 7, they are responsible for paying all of the costs associated with putting on that event.
Okay, all right. And I see that in our ordinance, in order for them to be waived, they have to apply, and we have to give the authority to waive it. So I just haven't seen it. So that applies to the list of the street closure events as well that we are approving this evening? Because some of them don't have street closures, and the list that we have on attachment 2 are actual street closures.
Correct.
Are those also waived, all of them, from city expenses, or only the 7?
Only the 7.
Okay.
Yeah, only the 7. I will point out that, I take that back. Freedom Fest used to be on here.
I don't see it on here.
Yeah, it's not on here anymore. There's so to close the streets, staff can't close the streets. It has to come from council's direction, unless it is a matter of public safety. Then the police chief can close the streets. And so during Freedom Fest, the site usually, let's say it's happening out at Clovis High School, Barstow is typically closed during the fireworks show, and that is by the police chief's orders.
There's a distinction, though, street closures for safety versus street closures for an event.
Absolutely.
Right, we're talking, they're different. You're talking about the events that bring folks to Old Town, yeah?
Correct.
2 kinds of street.
Yes.
And to make it on, I know we're moving to the street closures already, but to make it on this list just kind of expedites the process, because you're already on a list, so that way you don't have to do the whole ordinance thing. That's the way I've always understood it. So that if you make it on this list that we're approving tonight, it's kind of like a fast track to getting your event on without having to do all the notices required.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
These routine events, we just do them all at one time. It makes it easy on staff for planning reasons. We don't have to keep coming back to council every month, with a handful of new ones. So yes, that's correct, 100%.
Okay. Is it okay to ask about closures right now, or are you going to go through them after the events here on your presentation? If you are, then I'll wait till you get to that part.
No, I'm good. I'm good.
Okay. Now, on this list that we have this evening, there are new events that was not on here before, correct?
So,
and so my question is more, how did they get on, and what is staff's process on sort of weeding all that out to get them on so that way they get to be a yearly event that we close streets for?
Yes. Okay. So on attachment 2 in your, as part of the staff report, every single one of those are routine and they're returning events. There are no new ones on that list.
Okay. And then how come CVMD is not on? Did they not submit? Because they I remember they closed the street for like a car show in front of their events one time. They hold several events. So
yes.
Are they wanting to just go through the normal process instead of being adopted this evening?
Yes, they prefer to to request a street closure about 30 days before their events take place.
Okay. And then the senior center one, we have is that a run or a marathon? It doesn't require any street closure when we do that one? Is it on?
It is.
Are we separate because, I don't see City of Clovis, that's why I go.
Yeah, so the CSAC, which is this Clovis Senior Activities Center, we have the car show. It's about 3/4 of the way down on that list. That one's on there. And then the 5K run is not on this list at this time. And the reason for that is we're not exactly sure what the footprint of that event is going to be because of the construction that's happening north of 3rd Street. So we're going to have to bring that one back.
Okay. And then go back to the original question with regards to, then how does a new person get their list on here? What's the staff's sort of process to get them here?
Okay, that's a good question. On this, again, on attachment 2, the third item from the very bottom is barbecue contest by Grill Masters. For calendar year 2021, that was the first year that they held this event. It happens in the parking lot that's adjacent to the Elks Lodge in Old Town Clovis. And we worked with them, walked them through the process. And then last year, in 2022, they came back again, and they did a very good job. We felt that they have it dialed in, and we put them on this list because it has become a routine event. And we hope that that event continues to grow and is maintained as a routine event moving forward.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Drew?
Thank you. I recall maybe 2 years, 3 years ago, we had a group that was putting on ad hoc car shows downtown, which caused some conflict with businesses because they were taking spaces. Have we gotten our arms around that?
Yeah, it doesn't happen anymore. It's not promoted. There was a single business owner in Old Town Clovis that kind of invited their friends, to come and show off their cars.
That was a very nice event, great cars.
Yeah.
But it kind of, being on, I think it was on a Saturday, which caused some consternation amongst the businesses. So that's all. We want to encourage people to live their lives and enjoy Clovis, but there's a fine line. So we're good with that. We took care of that.
Took care of that one, yeah.
Good.
There was no street closure ever that was granted for that event. The cars were, the model was that they just, kind of park and use the streets like anyone else. But they really wanted street closure, so staff invited them to apply for street closure, and I think they just lost interest and they don't do it anymore.
And there was a business at 4th and Pulaski, the brewery there. They were taking up spaces. That issue has resolved itself too, correct?
That was related to the COVID?
Right.
Yes.
But it went past that, if I recall, that which caused some...
Yeah, there's no on-street dining anywhere in Old Town. On the pavement, there is sidewalk dining, but not in the street anymore.
Do we have a procedure for during some of these events where a restaurant could, if they wanted to, get into the put their booze up like they did before? Is there a process, or have we kind of stepped back from that completely?
There's a specific process for that. So as part of the ordinance that we talked a little bit about that was adopted in 2000, it spells out exactly how this the street closures work. And
right. I'm hoping that we're not going to see I'll talk faster then. Because for some of our downtown restaurants and businesses, being able to have a streamlined thing, because I think it's really a nice thing when the weather's nice, they can sit outside, increase their footprint, make some more money, serve more people. As long as we have a process,
there is.
Thank you, before the lights go out.
Literally. Thanks. Diane, questions?
I do have one question, just because I know a handful of these require a whole lot of street closures. What's been the impact for parking situations? And is there, I mean, are there like overflow lots that people are aware of and can utilize, or is it really just you park 18 blocks away and you hoof it in?
So for some of these events, they do make the promoters make arrangements to use some private parking areas. For example, Clovis Fest and Big Hat Days works with the Rodeo Association, and visitors to those events are parking in the Rodeo Grounds parking lot. The Children's Electric Christmas Parade works with Sierra Vista Mall and also the city of Clovis, to shuttle people back and forth from the mall to the footprint of the parade route. And so there are some cases where we do provide, the promoter working with the city will identify some parking spaces as needed. But for the most part, everyone has their favorite place to park. They have, it's like their fishing hole. You know exactly where it is, and you could find parking, and you're going to walk a couple blocks from there.
Yeah, is that good? Do you want to keep going, or, I'm sorry, Matt.
I can wait till he's done.
You want to keep going, or is your question related to where?
How long do we want this to go? I'll keep going.
We don't want to go for 3.5 hours.
Okay.
I was kidding about 3.5 hours.
No, I'm happy to wrap this up.
I wanted to make sure you were done.
No, the slideshow is done, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Go ahead, Matt.
Just one quick question. Have you had any complaints from the downtown businesses regarding anything that's listed on this list? I saw that you sent a letter out. Did anybody respond to the letter in opposition to this?
Nobody has responded. No businesses as of now have responded. And typically, staff will walk Old Town and drop these off because it gives staff an opportunity to visit with the folks that are open down there. And so that this year was no different. So staff walked, visited. Most of the time, the business owners are happy to see this so they can start planning their year around this. Most businesses like it when there's thousands of people at their front door, and so they can find something to sell those people. And so they're excited to have that calendar.
Okay, thanks.
Yes.
Let's see your last slide. Come on, I don't want to cut. No, just questions. I know there's one more. See, I knew there was one more. I have a question. So one of my questions was, the letter was dated December 21st. So you did go kind of door to door, because that doesn't, we always allow people to comment. It was Christmas and people were busy. Do you feel like people had a chance to weigh in because you did go door to door?
Yes, we are required to give 10 days for the folks to respond. Okay. And in this case, staff did go door to door to kind of take advantage of the time, and okay. I knew that the holidays were kind of getting in the way.
And my question, this always takes more time than we think it should. My question is, I think Vong asked it. There's a section here that there's a cost to this, but we've just said that 7 of them don't have to pay. But is the out for the you don't have to pay, the 2B that says you can apply to the city for cooperation presenting an event, is that how people could get on the list of 7? Because right now the ordinance says everybody pays.
Correct.
But we just said everyone doesn't pay.
That is
so
correct.
How do you reconcile that? Is that 2B?
2B, yes.
So 2B is our mechanism to say if you apply for us to not charge you,
right,
that we would entertain that as an action ourselves.
Right. So
okay.
You may recall in 2009 when the Blessed Seven list was made, there was discussion that this might not always be the same 7, that these may change over time. Some of them may fall out of favor a little bit, and other ones may take their place. So that can happen.
And then some of the events we don't actually do anymore, like the Clovis Fest Musical. What is that?
It's Clovis Fest. They used to call it Clovis Fest Musical years and years ago, but
no, they did not.
They did.
I am old, and I know that's not true.
Yes.
All right.
I think there is Oktoberfest, I think.
Oktoberfest is on.
Yeah.
Okay, I did not know that. Learn something new about Clovis trivia every day. All right, anything else for Sean? All right, thank you, Sean. Any more questions? Nothing else? Anyone in the chamber with any questions on this street closure, item? Seeing none? Online, anyone?
No.
Usually Boot comes and the chamber comes. I'm surprised they're not here. Okay. All right, I'll bring it back to the council. What is the pleasure?
Motion to approve the 2023 street closure request and approve the resolution declaring certain events as special events.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Sean. Administrative item number 8. This is a receive and file only, a city attorney update, and this will be presented by our city attorney, Scott Cross. You have a 3.5-hour PowerPoint?
No, I'm glad you saved time for me. So 20 minutes max, hopefully, but there'll be time for questions. This is meant just to be kind of a brief update and kind of provide some background on what the city attorney office does, roles and responsibilities, primarily for the new council members, just so you get an idea of what my role and our office's role is. And then I thought I'd weave in some updates and reminders, helpful reminders for you that we encounter on maybe a meeting by meeting basis, but often come up. So there is an opportunity for questions as we go, but most of you, I think, know most of this information. But again, it's really just to kind of introduce our department and what we do, what our role is, and then provide that brief update on some of the new stuff. So we'll get started. I'm the city attorney. I'm appointed, as you know, and actually, I think all of you do know, but I'm not a city employee. So the city contracts with Lozano Smith, the firm that I work for, has contracted with Lozano Smith for, I think, close to 30 years now for city attorney services. So there were 2 predecessors from my office, Tom Riggs, who retired, David Wolf, who is semi-retired, who you see and may see on occasion filling in for me if I have a conflict. We have several attorneys in the office, though, that do city attorney work kind of as deputy city attorneys that have expertise in a certain area that I may not have an expertise in, so they provide assistance. So there's probably anywhere from, 2 to 6 or 7 attorneys in a given month that are touching on different things. So I like to say, you get the benefit of all of the attorneys at Lozano Smith providing work. We have over 100 attorneys that work for our law firm in different offices throughout the state. We have expertise in almost everything. So you save on that as well, rather than having to hire outside counsel for some of the specialty things. So I'm appointed by, and Lozano Smith is appointed by, and serve at your pleasure. So you could terminate our contract and hire another city attorney if you wish to do so. The attorney-client relationship is with the city council, not with any one of you individually on personal matters. I can't advise you on estate planning matters or any potential personal liability things, but on city matters, I advise you. I also advise city staff on things, city officials, other city officials besides the city council on different matters pertaining to city business. And the attorney-client privilege covers that as well. So if I'm advising John as a city manager, or I'm advising a department head or a city employee on a certain city matter, the attorney-client privilege covers that as well. And then I help frame any ordinances and resolutions. I say frame because staff is pretty good. Staff in Clovis is pretty sophisticated. Oftentimes they'll take a first crack at an ordinance or resolution. We've provided over the years template resolutions that they can work with, template ordinances that they can work with. Someone from my office, myself, or someone else will give a final review before it finds its way into the council packet. As you know, I'm only an advisor. I'm not a policymaker. So I advise you, I advise city staff on certain things, but I don't make the decisions. You guys make the decisions, or city staff makes decisions when they are authorized to do so on certain things that may have been delegated to city staff to do, or certain administrative things to implement the policy that you all have set. again, city manager, department heads will make authorized decisions with my advice if they wish to consult with me. As you know, I attend council meetings. We also have an attorney that attends planning commission meetings, primarily to ensure compliance with the Brown Act, make sure that when needed, findings are made for certain things. We assist the council and the planning commission to ensure compliance with the procedural rules. The mayor, you guys all know and do a good job of making sure that each item is called for, public comment is allowed for that item, there's a motion, a second, proper approval, that sort of thing. So that's kind of routine, but we're there just to assist if questions come up. Obviously, we prepare written and oral advice for the council, city manager, and staff on any matters relating to city business. And we often attend staff meetings. The weekly staff meetings that John has, I'm attending those. And we'll also attend, someone from my office, myself, or someone else will attend meetings on any other things as well as needed. As staff requests us to be there, we may have a meeting with a developer on something. We may have a meeting on something else pending litigation that we're attending as well.
Hey, Scott.
Mike Linden is going to the Planning Commission, yes. So just continuing on with kind of our role as city attorney, provide regular trainings to council and staff. It's been some time, I think, since I've done the ethics training. I used to. I think there's any number of resources available to council and city officials for the ethics training. That's the 2-hour biennial AB 1234 ethics training. I'm happy to do so if you wish to, but I think all of you have received that training, that required training through the League of California Cities or someone else has done that. So
The only advantage is you make us sit here for 2 hours as opposed to doing it yourself and it says 1 hour, 56 minutes and you're like, oh, no. So the only advantage of in person is you won't let us leave, I'm just saying.
And I may give you a short break, but yeah. So, but we do provide some management training. We do also do the sexual harassment prevention training that's required. It's not just the council members that are required to take that. Any managers or supervisors at the staff level also are required to take that. So that's basically the roles. I also serve, and others from my office will represent the city in litigation. Most of the litigation that the city is involved in, someone from our office is handling. Employment, land use contracts. We have a closed session item tonight that our office is handling for you. We also do criminal prosecution of municipal code violations. That's something that was started probably about 5, 6, 7 years ago. I think we started filing mostly misdemeanor criminal complaints for some of those. Some are infractions, lesser. No one is going to jail over municipal code violations, but we do enforce those mostly with fines or stay-away orders, depending on what the violation is. The areas that we do not represent the city is when it's a workers' comp or personal injury accident, trip and fall, some of the claims you see on a routine basis that come before the council. Someone trips on a sidewalk, they submit a claim. That's handled through the city's insurance risk pool, the Risk Management Authority. They assign defense counsel for that, and that's handled through the premiums, basically, that the city pays to be in that insurance pool. So we don't handle those cases, but we do, on occasion, we'll advise on the claim process itself, but once it goes to litigation, then someone else is handling that through the Risk Management Authority. So those are the updates, kind of just a brief overview of what the city attorney's role is and what we handle, what we do. So I wanted to provide an update. There's 4 kind of updates and reminders that I want to hit on tonight. The first is Senate Bill 1439, and so some or all of you may be familiar with this. This is a new bill that was enacted last year, effective as of January 1 this year. There was quite a bit of chatter on it. The league actually was fairly aggressive on contacting the FPPC, the Fair Political Practices Commission, because they're going to be the ones that enforce this. So it amends Government Code Section 84308, effective January 1. Prior to this year, local officials such as city council members were not subject to this campaign contribution limit requirement. But as of January 1, you are. And there was quite a bit of debate on how it looks back and how it is going to be implemented. So I wanted to clear that up for you tonight because I know there had been some questions leading up to or towards the end of last year when this was going to take effect. So what it prohibits is city council members from participating in a proceeding involving a license, permit, or other entitlement of use. So typically, that's going to be a land use entitlement. But it could be a license or permit in different contexts. If a campaign contribution in excess of $250 was received from the party or participant, again, and I wanted to use an example. I didn't bring my agenda, but tonight, item number, was it 5 that was, or 6 that was continued, the J. Burke item? If you see in the staff report, there's a reference to the applicant. I think J. Burke is the applicant, and then there's another reference to whoever the next one was, the representative. So that, for purposes of this section, both J. Burke, the applicant, and the representative would be considered a participant. So in that context, I'm not saying that they have contributed or made a campaign contribution, but in that context, you can see how it works. If J. Burke or his LLC or the representative or his company had provided a campaign contribution in excess of $250, red flag should go on at that point. If you see an item that's coming to the council, you know at that point either a party or a party participant or an agent of the party.
Scott, I have a question. The definition of participant, somewhere in here it also uses, well, it says the project proponent. So is the intent of this law anyone who speaks in favor of a project, or is it only those with sort of a stake in it, a partner, paid proponent? Do you follow me? I mean, so if you have 10 people who spoke to it, 1 applicant and 10 proponents. Does it include all those 10 proponents?
No, I don't think so. Let me read the definition for you. It's actually fairly short. So party means any person who files an application for or is the subject of a proceeding. So clearly the applicant in that instance.
Right.
Participant is defined in the law to mean any person who is not a party but who actively supports or opposes a particular decision in a proceeding involving a license, permit, or other entitlement for use, and who has a financial interest in the decision.
Who's that again? That's a participant?
That's the participant, yes. So, again, assuming, again, I don't want to assume for purposes of only this discussion, the person in the J. Burke item, assuming that that other person was receiving compensation from J. Burke or his company, or you may have instances, Leo Wilson project or any developer project, they have an engineer. Oftentimes the engineer comes to the city council. They're being compensated by that developer for their work. They may be speaking on behalf of the developer as the proponent and stepping in the developer's place. That person is likely going to fall under the definition of a participant.
Is it anybody, are you okay if we ask you questions now?
Sure, absolutely.
Is it anyone, so let's just stay on agenda item number 6. Thank you to Mr. Burke and his case study. The bottom line group was the participant, I guess. The applicant is Dave Burke, LLC. Bottom line group is the participant, right?
The bottom line was the party. Is that right?
It says Dave Burke, LLC, owner, applicant, bottom line group, owner's representative.
Okay, yeah, you're right. That would be participant.
Is that anybody in the bottom line group or only the person coming? So in this case, it was Seth Ramirez.
Well, yeah, the bottom line group, if it's a company, if it's an entity, an LLC, it's the group, yes.
All right. All right. Do you have a question?
So I don't want to confuse you, but I do want to be able to flag the issue for you because it's brand new.
No,
so.
It's a flaggable
And staff does a good job. So 2 important points. Staff does a good job, I think, and that was at a request from council, I think, in the last couple of years, to better define in the staff report who the applicant is, because oftentimes we don't know who the applicant is or who the property owner is or whoever. So we try and do a better job of defining that in the staff report and calling that out. Another thing you'll notice, too, in the staff reports, as of, I think, just this meeting, and we'll do it on a going forward basis. First page of the staff report, under the agenda description, you see the conflict of interest item heading, and we'll obviously identify any of them that we know. Typically, the real property ones are the ones that the staff is going to be aware of. But we do have kind of a blanket admonition in there, or a warning for you guys to know going forward, hey, here's the applicant, here's what they're seeking, and just be aware that if you've received a campaign contribution in excess of $250, you need to be aware of that. So we'll go forward a little bit more in this.
Scott, could I just add?
Sure.
One of the challenges staff has is going to be that, and I wanted to point this out with the new staff report, was going to be that at the end of the day, you as elected officials are responsible for knowing the position you're in and who you've received monies from. We're not going to, donations from, we're not going to exactly know every single party. And so this is all new to us, and we need to learn through it together. But if something comes up and you have received donation, I'm guessing the whole concept of donations is going to change pretty significantly going forward. But if you do receive donations of $250 or more, and you think it's related to any project, I would encourage you to reach out to the staff or the city attorney to clarify before you come to a council meeting not sure if you need to recuse yourself or not.
Well, I think to your point, Scott, it's almost like we can't even have an item that doesn't have the people identified. Like, you can't just say Bottom Line Group, LLC, without a name. Otherwise, we may never know, right? So I feel like, you said staff does a really good job. I just think that's to be a requirement. You've got to give us a name.
Well, we're going to do the best that we can.
Yeah.
And, you take a look at it could be LLC Track Map 2521
right.
as the applicant.
Yeah. Do you have a question, Vaughn?
So let's go back to that, the J's. What was before us is from the appellant. So are we now looking only at the appellant because they're the one bringing the application before us? Right? Because J and them already got it approved, but the appellant is the one who's bringing it before us. So are we looking now at George Beal and not really at the others, or is it everybody who's involved? And so, I know this is probably new to the office, but I just see so many areas in which we're just like, okay, am I conflicted out now? Because it's...
Yeah, it wouldn't apply to the appellant, because the appellant is not seeking a permit or other use. They're seeking to have that denied. So I would say for sure it wouldn't apply to the appellant. In that particular instance, I may have to look at it, because they're seeking a CUP. The CUP is issued by the Planning Commission unless appealed to the council. So in that instance, it would be possibly Jay Verk and or anyone else associated with him as a participant would potentially be one that we would have to be ready to flag for you.
And then many times those groups use a spokesperson.
Correct. We'll
just use Dirk. Do we conflict out because Dirk contributed, but they haven't?
Well, that's
because he's really just doing the presentation, and he really potentially has no monetary interest in the project itself, other than I will present for you.
And
how do we know?
And if he doesn't, well, and I can get to that, but if he doesn't have a financial interest, then I don't think he falls in the definition of participant. Assuming he's being compensated by the developer to speak on the developer's behalf at the meeting, then he's clearly a participant.
Okay. And then it's only for license, permit, or entitlement, correct?
Correct.
And so citizens who come and they want to get something, then we have to be aware of that. Or if they're in a committee that is going to create a policy wouldn't fit into this, then, where we selected a committee of citizens who's going to create policies for us. It wouldn't conflict us out because, one of them is someone that has...
Your example does not sound like the city would be issuing a license, permit, or other use entitlement. Okay. Right. So, and I do want to flag, and this is a brand new area, so as you can imagine, we're going to have opinions on this from, the Attorney General's office or the FPPC, hopefully going forward from here, we'll see. But I noticed even tonight, I think there was an agreement that was approved on the consent calendar. So if someone's a vendor is seeking approval of an agreement. I'm not sure that agreement fits within license permit or other use entitlement. So it may be something else, but we'll have to wait and see how that gets interpreted. But for now, I think the plain reading of the statute is license permit and use entitlement. That's it.
One more quick, is there a way to get yourself out of the conflict?
Absolutely.
If there is enough time?
And I'll get to that.
Okay.
Yep, I got a slide on that for you. So I want to provide the rule first, and then how we avoid the rule.
Can you wait on the question?
Can I ask one question now? So in the case study we've been referencing, with George Beal as the appellant, he would have a financial stake in the decision, wouldn't he, since he owns an exact same business right across the street from what?
Well, he does, but he
still doesn't fall.
But he's not the one seeking the license permit or other entitlement. He's the appellant seeking to have that denied.
Okay.
You okay? No, sorry. All right, go ahead.
Okay, so the rule is in excess of $250. You need to be aware of that. You must disclose and recuse is the rule. So there's a look back and a look forward. And so one of the issues that the FPPC addressed in their opinion issued just last month was the league and several other agencies had said, wait a second, this is a new law that's going into effect January 1. How can you look back 12 months for campaign contributions that a council member may have received back in February of 2022 before this law was even in anyone's mind and certainly before it was effective? And so the FPPC did issue an opinion just a few weeks ago that says the look back, the 12-month look back to see whether a council member received a contribution in excess of $250 only looks back to January 1 of this year. That's it. That's when the law took effect. So let's say you received a campaign contribution of $500 from someone, even if they come to you or come to the city council next week, that would not require disclosure or recusal as long as the campaign contribution was prior to January 1. The look back for now goes only back to January 1 of this year. It also looks back because of the look forward. So the second bullet point, shall not accept, solicit, or direct campaign contribution in excess of $250 from a party or participant during the proceeding or for 12 months after the proceeding. So again, you can't, if there's no campaign contribution given before the proceeding, you participate in the decision, you make the decision, and then within 12 months after, that person who received the license, permit, or other use entitlement cannot provide a campaign contribution of over $250. So there's a 12-month look back and a 12-month look forward. But again, that look back and look forward only applies from January 1. So, for example, if you made a decision in December of last year, issued a permit for someone, that decision would not be within the scope of that since January 1st. So, an example, you made a decision, you approved a track map, or you issued some sort of use entitlement to a developer, whoever, in December, that would be okay. That would not prohibit a campaign contribution of in excess of $250 because it happened before January 1. But since January 1, that's when the look forward and the look back period applies. So we're in that now for any decisions that may come up from this point forward. And again, the FPPC opinion clarified that, and that's a binding opinion. We can rely on that. You can rely on that. If I was to issue an opinion or say, here's what I interpret the law to be, it wouldn't be binding on them. And it wouldn't protect you from a potential FPPC fine, unfortunately. Only an FPPC opinion can protect an official from, hey, I can rely on this opinion from the FPPC, here's what I'm doing. They can't come back and say, wait a second, you didn't do it right. Well, if you relied on their opinion, then you're okay. So let's go forward, because I think the next slide will hopefully answer some questions. So there is an ability for officials to cure, okay? Officials, and I think it's important too, the law requires both the official and the party to the proceeding to disclose on the record at the meeting the contribution in excess of $250. So again, let's use our case example of Mr. Verk. Let's say Mr. Verk had given a campaign contribution of $500 to one of you. Not only would the official need to disclose that, say, I received a campaign contribution from Mr. Burke, I'm not able to participate in tonight's proceeding. Mr. Burke, during his presentation, he should also make that same disclosure. So there is an obligation in the law on the developer to be aware of that as well and disclose it. The council members aren't going to know in every instance. In fact, you're not even going to know maybe until a couple of weeks before a meeting that there's an item coming for a certain development or whatever it might be. And again, as John mentioned, staff isn't necessarily going to be advising you, 2 months out that PDS has an application from this developer or whatever, and beware if you've got any campaign contributions, we're going to be going forward in March with an item to the council. So you may not even be aware of it until a couple of weeks before. So that's the purpose of the cure availability. A pre-decision cure, okay? So this is a contribution that's given before 12 months, up to 12 months before the decision. Again, where there's a look-back period. We're at a council meeting. The developer's here asking for some sort of approval. And, okay, wait a second, did I get a campaign contribution in excess of $250 from that individual? That's when you know it's before the decision. And then again, there's the 12-month look forward. You can't participate and make a decision and then accept a campaign contribution in excess of $250 from that party up to 12 months after. So the pre-decision cure is 30 days, within 30 days of knowledge, okay? So 30 days, you get a contribution, and then within 30 days of you knowing, hey, I got a contribution from this individual, oh, and they're coming forward to the city council at some point for a decision, and I know when that's going to be. Now, light goes on, I have 30 days to cure. The cure is to return the amount in excess of the $250. That's only if you want to participate, though. Again, there's nothing that prohibits you from accepting that contribution. What this says is if you accept that contribution in excess of $250, you just need to disclose it and recuse yourself. So again, if there's, for whatever reason, hey, I'll take the campaign contribution, it's totally fine, I'll do my disclosure, but I'm just not going to be able to participate in the decision. So if you, for whatever reason, want to participate in the decision, then you have the opportunity to cure that by returning the excess contribution. And then the post-decision cure is a little bit, it's similar, but it's 14 days. So within 14 days. Again, that is in the event of no campaign contribution before the decision. The developer comes or whoever comes, you make the decision, you participate in the decision because you haven't received a contribution that would require you to recuse yourself beforehand. You participate in the decision, and then within 12 months after, they say, hey, thank you for that decision. Here's $500 for your next campaign. Well, you have 14 days to return that or return the excess above $250 to avoid a violation. That's the only cure at that point. Otherwise, you have to say, hey, I got to wait. You got to wait 12 months. You can't give me any contribution in excess of $250. Or cure it at that point. So a little bit confusing. I know I've tried to make it as easy as possible. I've got some blank stares, so it'll be a learning thing for all of us, I think, at this point. And it's just, again, to flag the issue for you. But I do think it's important. The BIA has been alerted to this, I think. We've made sure, I'm assuming that they're aware of it, but we have let them know. Their members, as they come forward for land use entitlements and other permits and whatnot, they have to be cognizant of this. They're required to make the same disclosure as you would be at a council meeting. So, any questions? Any more questions?
Can I ask a question? I was going to ask this question about BIA. They're an advocacy group. I don't know that if, let's say they come and they speak for the applicant, just to give their opinion, this is a great thing. If they don't materially benefit, they don't have a direct financial, I guess in long term they would a contribution of more than $250 or more, would that, if you got it from BIA, would I mean, they're an advocacy group, at least in my mind. They're not the builder, they don't.
Right.
Does that, where do we sit with that?
I don't think that changes the equation for them. I don't see the BIA having necessarily a specific financial interest in the decision that evening. I mean, indirectly, I guess a series of decisions are probably better for the BIA and its membership, obviously, but in that particular subdivision or that particular decision that evening, I don't think they have a specific direct financial interest in that.
And we just went through the holiday season, and obviously we're going to be in a holiday season in a year, 11 months from now. We routinely get invited to an event. And if we all got, or we got boxes of candy from an entity. I give it to staff, but I still have to disclose that $60 box of C's candy. So this is it's a cumulative during the year. So it's 12 months cumulative. So I get a box of candy and then I go to an event. I'm going to have to make sure when I pencil all that in that it doesn't exceed $249, right?
So you're blurring two issues. One is campaign contributions, and the other is gifts. And we'll get into gifts in the next slide.
Okay.
However, but they're two totally separate things. So one is the campaign contributions that you all are required to report. So your example of a box of candy, I don't imagine that's a campaign contribution that would need to be reported as a campaign contribution, but it may be a gift that needs to be reported, and then you do have to add up from a single source within a year whether or not it exceeds the threshold amount.
And even if we don't, you know what, I'll wait till you get to the gift thing. Okay. But even if we don't use it, we still have to disclose it, right? I mean, and that's where gift becomes kind of a weird thing.
If you accept the gift, even if you dole it out to someone else, you're still controlling the gift. So the law presumes that you've accepted it, you need to report it, because even if you give it to someone else, you're still exercising control over that gift. Unless you return it to the person who gave it to you, then you don't have to. But if you take it, say, I'll just give it away to city staff or someone else, or I'll donate it to charity or whatever, you're still controlling what happens with that gift. You're still deemed to have accepted the gift.
Okay, thank you.
So staying on the BIA question in our case study, so I'm not happy with this light thing. This light thing is worrying me. Okay, so if an advocacy group, they gives you $1,200, or some larger, more than $250, you could make a case. I've recused myself from, when I worked at community, I recused myself from actions that would benefit community hospital because ultimately they paid my salary. So I did say, well, I'm not going to benefit directly, but I am going to benefit because I get paid by them, and I did it with Valley Children's. BIA would be no different. They only exist because people pay their dues. So you could make the case that they do have a financial stake, because if their members aren't satisfied with their advocacy, then they don't pay their dues, then BIA goes away. So I guess I want to just ask again.
Yeah,
to Drew's point, are we
I certainly understand the logic. I think it would be just so hard. There's so many steps to that. Assuming the dues aren't contingent upon the amount of subdivisions that are approved in Clovis. Yeah, does the dues go up if there's 10 subdivisions in Clovis by that member versus 5? I don't imagine that's how they pay their dues, but we may need to double check that. So,
does the same thing apply to labor unions or bargaining groups who give you money? Shauna's saying no.
They're not seeking. I don't imagine they're seeking a permit, a license, or a use entitlement. So I don't think it applies to the bargaining units.
Okay. Sorry. We're all reading ahead.
Yeah.
The last line about misdemeanors is a little silly, but keep going.
Just back to Mayor's point, so PACs will be exempt because they're not really seeking a title. So as long as they're not, even though they're members, whoever's contributing may later on, but they themselves, as the entity, may not.
That's my understanding of how it will work, correct. So next slide, I think this will hit on, well, actually before we get to gifts, Drew, I'm sorry. So there's one other slide. So this is a good reminder, even for tonight, and as it often comes up when there's a recusal or disqualification, the law actually has a specific process that's to be followed. Publicly identify the financial interest immediately before or as the item is called up. So, for instance, tonight we had consent calendar. Item number 5, I think, was Drew's conflict. We identify the conflict. You owned real property within 1,000 feet, I think, was the conflict. That should be made. I think to Lynn's comment about working for community, that's one of the 5 financial interests. If you've gone through the ethics training and you recall what the 5 financial interests are. Yeah, so source of income would be one. So if the decision involves or is reasonably likely to have a material financial impact on a source of income to the official, that's a financial interest that should be disclosed, and then you recuse yourself. Real property is another one, source of a gift, which is another one we'll get into. Personal financial impact of a material nature that's other than just a source of income, but personal financial impact, and I'm forgetting, business entity. So obviously if you have an ownership interest in a business entity and that decision is coming forward to the council, you're required to disclose that on the record and then recuse yourself. So recusal actually means leaving the room, but there are exceptions to that, one of which is, you'll see the small bullet point at the bottom, may remain in the room if the item's on consent, but obviously you don't participate, which you don't. You also could leave the dais if it's a matter of public interest to you, but maybe you reside within 1,000 feet of a park and the city's considering something and you're really opposed to it. You announce your conflict, you leave, you can speak as a member of the public, you can remain in the room in the public area, but you can't come back to the dais. So only in those instances can you actually remain in the room. Otherwise, as you do, you leave, you announce the conflict or the recusal, and then you typically will step into the back room here, not participate in the discussion, not participate in the vote. That's completely proper. Just a couple of reminders. They don't often come up here that I can recall. Partial absence. You may see other city councils or boards during the meeting. I mean, they could last several hours. The legislative body members are up and down, leaving, gone for 30 minutes, whatever. You can't do that. Partial absence does not excuse the identification. So let's say on the agenda, item number 7, you look ahead, you have a conflict. When item 6 comes up, you can't just leave, take a break, listen, and then come back by the time item 9 has now been heard. And that doesn't satisfy the disclosure and recusal requirement for item 7 if you had the conflict on 7. You should still state, hey, I'm going to take a little break, I'm going to leave for 30 minutes, and oh, by the way, I have a conflict on item 7, so I won't be participating. You can't just leave and without announcing the conflict. The idea is you need to disclose publicly that you would have had a conflict on that item, even if you weren't participating. Now, if you're completely absent from a meeting, you're not required to do that. But you can't just come and go during a meeting just to avoid the public disclosure that's required for the conflict. If you wanted to be absent from a full meeting because you didn't feel comfortable making the disclosure, the law does not prohibit that. And then closed session, I don't know that this comes up very often for us, but if you do, for whatever reason, have a conflict on a closed session item, the proper thing to do would be to announce it as we announce that closed session. Hey, the meeting is done. We're going to be retiring to closed session for this item. That would be when if you have a conflict. By the way, I have a conflict on this item. I will not be participating in this discussion on closed session this evening. If we have one item, then you're free to leave. If we have a couple items, we probably take that one first, leave you out, and then go back. So we just want to make sure we're doing the proper recusal, disclosure, and recusal requirement so that we're following the law. Any question on that? Okay. Now I think we get to gifts, Drew. So the gift limit has increased. The gift limit, as you know, increases, I think, every 2 years. January 1 of every odd year it goes up. So it went up from $520 in the last 2 years to $590. So $590 is the threshold amount. public officials, and not just council members, but public officials as well, city manager, myself, other city staff that's subject to the gift limit, is prohibited from receiving a gift or gifts totaling in excess of $590 from a single source in a calendar year. Okay, so single source. So that could be one gift of $590, done. It could be a series of gifts over a period of months in a calendar year. It could be lunch every week with someone that they're paying for your lunch. You need to be cognizant of that, and once it gets to $50, you're required to report it, and then you're prohibited from receiving it if it exceeds $590 in a calendar year. That's the threshold amount. And then, hopefully it's not confusing, but you have a disqualifying interest. Again, this is one of the 5 conflicts. If it's a source of income that's coming, or a source of a gift that's coming to the council for some sort of approval, you cannot participate in the decision. You'll have to announce the conflict. Hey, this is someone who has given me gifts that exceed $590 in the last 12 months preceding the decision. And that's a floating 12 months. Again, the first one's the calendar year. So 590 is the limit for a calendar year. But if you've received perfectly fine and legal a $590 gift on December 31st, a $590 gift on January 1st, perfectly legal, 590 in each calendar year. But if they come to the city council for a decision a month later, you would have to announce, hey, this is a source of gift to me. You've reported the gift, obviously, and then you're not going to be able to participate in the decision because you've received more than $590 in the 12 months preceding the decision. So 590 calendar year limitation, more than $590 in the last 12 months before the decision is going to require disclosure and recusal.
Can gifts be cured in that scenario?
Gifts can be cured, yeah. I think you have 30 days to return a gift without using it to the person who gave the gift to you, yes. Okay,
well, in the scenario you gave, get a $590 gift in, let's say, this year. I get another, and not that we get these gifts, but I'm just asking you. Yeah, I know. That's a lot of candy. And the next year I get the $590 again, but I'm not aware that anything's going to come before us. Something comes on the agenda. Can I cure that by giving that gift back, or is it the 30 day? I know it's kind of convoluted.
Yeah, you only have 30. My understanding for gifts is you only have 30 days. It's a little bit different than the campaign contribution thing we covered because, again, at that point, you know you've received a gift. That's, I think, the thought behind it. You know you've received a gift that needs to be reported. If it's $50 or more, you should be reporting it. Whether or not that person's ever going to come to you or come to the council for a decision, you have 30 days to return that. It's not like the campaign contribution thing where it's like, I have no idea whether this person's ever going to come before me or not. They're donating to my campaign. That's great. Lots of people donate to my campaign. Oh, by the way, you learn 2 months later that now that person is coming forward and you wish to participate, then you have an opportunity to cure there. For gifts, I think the thought is, you know it's a gift the moment you get it, whether or not that person is ever going to come before you or come before the city council for a decision.
Thank you.
Okay, proceed.
The last one, the last reminder for the night. You'll recall AB 992, well, you won't recall the actual number, but you'll recall that the Brown Act was updated 2 years ago to deal with social media use by council members, legislative body members. You can obviously engage in conversation on social media. You can solicit comments from the public. You can even poll the public. You can answer questions, et cetera. That's fine. But the section of the Brown Act that defines what a meeting is the section that was amended to deal with this issue. So what's prohibited is the major thing to take away. The first bullet point is just like in any other context. 3 of you can't get together for breakfast and talk about city business, okay? 3 of you can't get together anywhere and talk about city business. A majority of you are prohibited by the Brown Act from doing so unless you've agendized it and posted it as a meeting that's open to the public. So the first bullet point touches on that. A majority of the members cannot use an internet-based social media platform to discuss among yourselves business of a specific nature within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council. Okay? So what does that mean? Actually, it defines, the law defines what internet-based social media platform is. It's defined as something that's free of charge and open and accessible to the public. So if you think about it, I think it's hard to get in the mind of the legislature in California. However, if you think about it, the second bullet point hits what the prohibition is. Any member, so any one of you, cannot respond directly to any communication on an internet-based social media platform regarding a matter within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council that is made, posted, or shared by any other member. So that would prohibit even one of you from commenting on another council member's post. Again, the definition of internet-based social media means it's free of charge and open and accessible to the public. I think the thought is, even if you're not commenting or posting, it's available for you to see. So one of you posts a comment, or one of you makes a post, one of the other council members comments on it, now you know, any one of you would know what the position of two of those members are, at least. So I think that's what they're trying to get at with that. So just be cognizant of that. That would include a like on Facebook, or what is it called now, Meta? I don't know. So a thumbs up, a like, some sort of emoji. Again, it's got to be a post from another member. You can comment on a city post. Chad will post something on, the city's Facebook page or something, or PD's Facebook page. That's fine for all of you to comment on that. But if one of you makes a post and then someone else likes it, then that's where we're going to get into problems. So just be cognizant of the limits on social media and commenting on each other's posts. I would suggest not do it. It's okay to post, but don't comment on each other's posts, or don't give a reaction or an emoji or a like or whatever it might be to that post from another council member if there is one.
So not to take this to the absurd, there's a reason I don't do social media. This reinforces that's a super good call. If Drew posted something that said the Clovis Rodeo Parade was the best thing ever, we just approved that we're not going to charge them for their parade, and I were to say, good, yes, I like that, does that count? Like we had jurisdiction over the parade happening, and I said, you're right, good for you, that's great. Does that count? Huh?
It's a nice lawyer, basically.
I know.
Yeah,
is that where we're going with this? Or are they looking for something more substantive, like, gee, the parade should have started at 10 or should be more streets, and I would say, yeah, I thought so too. Or is it that?
I think it's going to be more substantive other than just commenting on an event itself.
Something happening in our city that we probably...
We need to make sure we have more police, along the sides of the street during the parade because of X, Y, Z. I think then that's going to be maybe crossing the line on constituting a meeting where you're discussing something outside the context of an agendized city meeting with members of the public present.
I don't do it anyway, but I don't have any social media, but this is why I don't have any social media. This is ridiculous.
Clear as mud?
Yep. And the enforcer for this is who?
For the Brown Act, it's going to be the DA can enforce Brown Act violations.
So someone has to bring it to the attention that I commented that Drew said that we needed more of this, and I said, yes, we need more of that. So someone has to report that?
Correct. There's the DA's office, I think, has a public integrity unit that you may have heard of. I think a neighboring city was running into issues with that. So, yeah, that's who would look into it and then say, hey, what's going on over there? So, last slide.
I hope so, because you are not a very fun presenter.
Questions?
Oh, yay! Just kidding.
And I'll just, I would just making some observations, and again, not necessarily for you, but even members of the public who are here. So 3 additional observations or maybe explanations of why we do certain things on the meeting agenda, okay? So I noted tonight, Brown Act requires, obviously, which you all do a good job, Brown Act requires an opportunity for the public to comment and address the council on any item of interest to them that's within the subject matter jurisdiction of the city. And then also the Brown Act requires that either before or during the council's consideration of an item that the public have an opportunity to comment. So 2 public comment periods. as you know, we have the general public comment period for non-agenda items, and we have the public comment on any agenda item where before you make your decision, before you make a motion, that they have an opportunity to comment on. So 2 items, obviously the explanation for the 2 separate public comment items. And then the notices, so the notice in the agenda, Mayor Ashbeck reads it all the time, and any mayor will read it. The ordinances and resolution notice, does anyone wonder why that's in there and why you read it? Well,
someone screwed up.
There's a government code provision that actually requires, unless waived by a motion of the council, an entire ordinance is to be read. Okay, so you can imagine some of the ordinances that may come to the council, unless waived by reading of the title of the ordinance, otherwise you got to read the entire ordinance. So we streamline that so that you don't have to make a motion every single time, because some agencies, if you watch, they may not have that, and so they say, okay, motion to introduce the ordinance and waive the entire reading of the ordinance. We include that just to help you all get through the meeting without having to read a 45-page ordinance. And then the last thing, I guess, that just came up tonight, if there's a question. So why do we continue to a date certain, as opposed to continuing just indefinitely?
Public notice?
Why do we?
There you go, public notice, yeah. It saves on the public noticing, because public notice for public hearing is required to be published 10 days before, sometimes more, or whatever it might be. The thought is, everybody who received or was interested in that item is here tonight to talk about it. And they're going to be here tonight when they hear that you've continued it to a date certain. They'll be here at that date certain when they come back. And so the city is not then required to renotice, republish a new notice if it's continued to a date certain. If it's continued to an indefinite date, then obviously we got to do the renoticing and all that stuff. But continuing to a date certain when requested is usually a good idea, because it saves city staff on having to renotice it.
I have a question regarding public comment. Having worked for some other cities and seen people come to the, come to the podium and discuss things like, we need to come up with a plan to go to Mars and have intergalactic meetings up there. Obviously, we don't have any purview on that. I mean, we want to be pleasant and professional with these folks, but if you have somebody, let's say they come every meeting and they're talking about Mars, what do we do? I mean, obviously, I think we're going to be as nice as we can, but there comes a point where what is the procedure for shutting them down?
I think, well, first of all, I usually say give people their 3 minutes, thank them, and move on. Don't comment.
Right.
But if it becomes a reoccurring issue from a particular speaker and they're, clearly out in left field on something that you guys have no control over, it's clearly outside of the city's subject matter jurisdiction, then I think a reminder from the mayor at that point, or politely stepping in and saying, we really don't have any ability to correct this issue for you or address it, maybe make a suggestion that they go to the county or somewhere else, where whoever it might be. But, usually it's give them their 3 minutes, let them move on.
And we're very fortunate. Our citizens come, even if they're, quite frankly, taking a bite out of us, it's always done professionally, and quite frankly, we need to get those things. We need to hear that voice. Like I said, I've been in some meetings where you're just like, oh boy. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Any other questions for Scott?
Yes. Back on the campaign contribution question.
Yes.
So, using our case study with Mr. Verk, had Mr. Verk donated $500 to all 5 of us, then what? Or 4 of us? Or in the last cycle, 3 of us?
Those are the issues. And the last cycle is now no longer an issue because we're not looking back, but that was an issue that was raised by several officials and the league itself, saying, wait a second, this is campaign season, there's been many, many donations that have already gone out the door. The cat's out of the bag, so to speak. We can't have this look back into 2022. But if you're talking about even going forward, there would need to be either some sort of cure by a majority, by enough of you so that 3 of you can participate in the decision, if that's the requirement, or, well, so Jay's was actually a CUP, which is interesting, because that would be, unless it's appealed, it stays at the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission is the final body for a CUP unless it's appealed to the council. But I would think that there would need to be some sort of action by the council, so enough of you would have to cure that, or we keep the appeal pending long enough so that the 12-month period expires, and you know you're now 1 or 2 of you are free to participate. I don't know. Interesting dilemma.
All right. Anything else? Yeah, that's.
A question about just social media, because many of us are on there. So if one of my peers shares something and I reshare it, it's sort of like a like or a thumbs up, correct? Especially if it's, let's say we're talking about something in which we agree upon, which is, hey, this is going to come, we're going to put a tax on to the citizens, something in which we have jurisdiction over. We may agree with some article or some position which really clearly defines where we stand. So if I share it, that is where we're violating what you said earlier. So someone shared it, but I reshare it. Let's say Matt shares it and I reshare Matt's post. That's what I shouldn't be doing.
I think you're right. And again, is Chad still here? I don't know. Is sharing the same as like a like? Okay.
Yeah, or
right.
Yeah. So if I share, or even if I like. You also could share something in not like. Okay. Yeah. Like if I went to the room, so my question was more, like if I retweeted or shared what he did, it would be like I'm agreeing, kinda. But if I went to the original, he went to the original, I went to the original, we both shared the same thing, then we're okay then.
I believe you would be okay because you're not sharing, you're not commenting on something that was made, posted, or shared by another member of the same body. So if you both share from the original source and you're not sharing from each other, I think you're okay under this prohibition, yes.
All right, anything else for staff, for Scott? Anyone in the chamber or questions for Scott on any of this? We're going to just make the Planning Commission do everything. That's what we're going to do. You're welcome. Anyone online, Carrie? No. All right. This is a receive and file. Thank you, Mr. Cross. Appreciate that. All right. City manager comments.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a couple items. Go ahead, Andy. So I was on vacation. I came back and realized on Saturday night that the Christmas tree outside City Hall had gone down. On Sunday, we had crews in for a couple hours and basically put the tree back upright. I was so proud of the crew. And then today came, and I took a look at the storm and the impact on the tree, and it's listing pretty bad. And so that Christmas tree will probably not be the Christmas tree for 2023. Just want to give you a heads up on that. And the other thing I had was going to be at the request of one of the council members with regards to the positioning of the TVs in the council chamber and having difficulty or, neck hurt to be able to see these the presentations. We took a look at an idea of possibly putting a TV up in front of the city council. Carrie has the lead, basically, and has come up with a solution that is much less expensive by putting a couple monitors on the dais so that you'll actually have something in front of you so that you're not having to turn. So we'll get those together in the next couple of weeks. It's a very inexpensive upgrade, and I think it'll make it easier for you just to follow the presentations. That's it for me. Thank you.
The monitors aren't going, people need to see our faces.
you'll see there that the ones we have are gonna be like an inch or two above the dais, and we'll take a look at it. We can angle them also.
Okay, thanks.
I say that, then I look at Carrie.
There will be like Carrie's, like little.
No, those monitors are exactly like your Surface tablets, where you can adjust the height if you want to lay it lower or have it more upright. Or you could even move it too. The way it's set up, it's very flexible.
Thanks, Carrie. Anything else, John? All right, thanks. Council comments, Matt? Diane?
I just had two things. One, I attended the enrobing ceremony for our former colleague, the Honorable Bob Whalen. I know there had been a reception that I wasn't able to attend, so I did attend the enrobing ceremony, and that was just very exciting, special. You know, you got some history and all of that, so that was a really great event. And then I also just wanted to make a comment. We have a new Speaker of the House in Washington, D.C., in Kevin McCarthy, and I think the fact that the member of Congress who represents Clovis is in that position is a really great opportunity for us. And so I am just excited about that for our community to have that type of representation. But I also just wanted to comment that I think what we saw play out over this last week, where we saw tension and disagreement, just to acknowledge that that's okay among a governing body, and that sometimes it's healthy when you work through those types of differences, and it can lead to really good outcomes. And so not everything has to be a unanimous vote, but I think the important thing that people can see in that, kind of the ugliness of the sausage being made, but it's that point when the vote has been taken, the decision's been made, and you all move forward together from that point. And I think that's something that people have been used to seeing from this body. I am excited to be part of that and expect that to continue. But just that idea for the community to see people working through those differences, I think that's a positive thing. And but again, the most important thing is moving forward together on the back end of those things.
Thank you. Drew?
I attended a San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District Board meeting in December, and one of the items was the appropriation and acceptance of $6.1 million and a funding program for zero-emission commercial landscaping equipment. And I'm going to give this to staff and ask them to share this with everyone in League of Cities here in the area, and also with Clovis Unified and Fresno Unified, Cemetery District, any other group that we think that would benefit from this. You don't have to replace something. Usually, you got to throw a piece of equipment out before you do that. There's no limit on this, and $6.1 million will go a very long way. And with, you know, people are going to be in the budget preparation here coming up, and this might be perfect for some folks. So I'll give this to staff. That's all I have. Oh, and I passed the rodeo grounds, and I'm really today, and I'm proud of the fact that our rodeo association opens their facility up when people need it. There were probably 20 cherry picker vehicles and other emergency vehicles for the storm, and they are such a great partner, and I'm very proud of them.
Thanks, Drew. Fong?
Yeah, I wanted to thank staff, Carrie and PD and Public Works, whoever went out to Hmong New Year and weathered the storm out there, because it rained for 3 days, and it was only the last day that they received sunshine. But to give our city a presence at the Hmong New Year, thank you for doing that. I also want to thank our Public Works Department, as Scott was sharing ahead of time, that, you know, the city prepared for the storm ahead of time, clearing storm drains, getting, you know, things ready, so that way when it came, we were ready. And as they continued to work through the storm, just wanted to send, you know, word of support to all our staff who are working out each and every day and night. So thank you. That's all I have.
Thanks, Vaughn. I want to, I also attended Bob's swearing in. It was sweet to watch that a little bit, bittersweet for me for sure, but it was, good for him. And I also want to say that I had the privilege of being invited to, Mr. Moanatua's, and I don't mean him, I mean his father's 85th birthday, and it was really a huge honor. So, thank you for including, Drew was there, Matt was there. It was a really wonderful testimony to a man who I don't fully understand the impact of his life, but I get that from the 600 people in the room, it was pretty significant. So thank you for including us. I did tell Long I was trying as he was doing his lovely speech to his father, all in Hmong. I was trying to get to Google Translate as fast as I could, but I couldn't get there. So he was nice enough to give me the words, but it was a really wonderful tribute to your father. So thank you for including us in there. And I think I have I'm not trying to be Bob, please believe me, but this to me, I sent this to John before Christmas. The picture is what I want you to look at. It's one of our officers helping somebody across the street, and to Ty and to Chad, to whatever role you had in this, the way to protect our community is to serve it. To me, that should be the tagline of our mayor's breakfast. I just think that is exactly right. And it's not protect as a law enforcement, but we all have a role in protecting our community. So I was just really deeply touched by the officer. I don't know who that was, but to me, this is Clovis. And so I just think lifting up these kinds of things is really important. So to Ty, and if you help get that out there, it's a really great story. So thanks for sharing that. I will not be like Bob, but this was, I thought, super cool. So thanks. And I think that is all we have tonight. So we are going to adjourn. We might be doing that too. No, I'm sure that's illegal. Adjourn into closed session. We are going to discuss the item that is on our agenda. And Scott, are we going to take any action tonight?
We are not requesting action, so there will be no report of any action tonight.
All right. So thank you to those on the web. Thanks for calling in. Those in the chamber, thanks for being here. And meeting adjourned.